Take a quick second and think about exactly where you're sitting right now. Seriously, feel your chair, notice the height of your desk, the angle of your screen. Are you sitting perfectly upright? Are you kind of slouching? Well, consider a bizarre, hyper-specific setup like a daybed laptop workstation. Now, wild designs like that aren't just the result of a designer waking up with a crazy flash of genius. They're actually the direct result of rigorous, heavily hidden behavioral research. There's quite literally a mountain of invisible data dictating your everyday comfort, and you probably haven't even realized it.
Welcome to this explainer. We're going to do something pretty fascinating today. We are going to reverse engineer the exact methodology that dictates the shape, the function, and the feel of the furniture we interact with every single day. We're diving into how designers actually figure out what we want, usually way before we even know we want it ourselves.
Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1. Design starts with research. 2. The designer's toolkit. 3. The art of asking. 4. Reimagining the modern office. 5. The work-from-home revolution. And finally, 6. Designing for evolving needs.
All right, part 1. Design starts with research, breaking the lone genius myth.
First things first, we've got to completely shatter this myth of the lone designer just sketching away in a vacuum. In reality, the vast majority of design briefs are a massive tug-of-war. It's a tight balance between creative freedom on one side and the really strict limitations of function, manufacturing capabilities, and commercial viability on the other. Take a transforming piece like a reconfigurable dining and work desk, for example. It adapts based on what a user needs in a tight space. But well before a designer ever touches a sketchpad for a piece like that, commissioning companies have already done some heavy lifting. They've established a market need, they've calculated the potential size of that market, and they know exactly what the target consumer is actually willing to pay. Only when all of those boxes are checked is the designer finally brought in.
Moving right along to Section 2, the designer's toolkit, data and intent. So how are they actually gathering all this information? It really comes down to understanding two major buckets of data. On one hand, we've got quantitative data. Think of this as your hard numerical statistics, the kind of stuff usually gathered through massive, broad questionnaires. On the other hand, we have qualitative data. This captures the squishy, complex nuances of human behavior, our opinions, our emotions, the why behind what we do. And honestly, nearly all effective design research relies on a really healthy mix of both.
Which brings us to the next layer of the toolkit, the researcher's actual intent. Descriptive intent is exactly what it sounds like. It simply seeks to understand things exactly as they are right now, taking a snapshot of how you currently behave. Normative intent, though, that builds on that descriptive foundation to dictate how systems and objects could and maybe should be in the future. It's that super exciting leap from just observing how things are to figuring out how we can actually make them better.
Section 3. The art of asking, mastering the methodology.
Once researchers know the kind of data they're after, how do they actually get it? Well, there are three main ways: observing behavior, asking questions, and studying static objects. Let's zoom in on the asking part. When building a questionnaire, there are some absolutely crucial do's and don'ts. First up, you have to test your questions on a sample group to catch any confusing wording. Second, you can never prejudice the responses by using leading language or offering poorly balanced answers. Third, keep it incredibly concise and explicit. And lastly, because human beings are wonderfully unpredictable, you always have to include an other option.
But what happens when they aren't studying people at all, but rather inanimate objects? Well, researchers will break static objects down into specific categories. Standard properties are the universal characteristics shared across the board. Variable properties are the things that differ from one object to the next. And then you have singular properties. These are the highly unusual, remarkable traits that totally stand out. Think of a chair that only has 3 legs, or a full desk that can fold down into a suitcase. Categorizing things this way is a neat trick that helps designers quickly spot fresh gaps in the market.
All right, on to Section 4. Reimagining the modern office, the Parks case study.
Okay, let's look at this methodology out in the wild. A great example is a massive 2-year research project by the consultancy Pearson Lloyd. They set out to deeply understand the modern knowledge worker. Someone whose job isn't just mindlessly typing, but collaborating, solving problems, and bouncing ideas around. The really incredible part is where their inspiration came from. They literally used anthropological observation. They went out and watched how people naturally interact on the Spanish Steps in Rome. They even studied the Dogon people in Mali, Africa, where tribal elders meet in these incredibly low-ceiling spaces, physically forcing them to sit down. You can't exactly get into a heated physical argument if you can't stand up, right? That brilliant, direct research translates directly into specific furniture elements, like casual bench setups, private sofa wings, and semi-enclosed meeting spaces.
Section 5. The work-from-home revolution, a quantitative look.
Now, let's move out of the corporate office and right into your house. Way before the recent global shifts in remote work, designers already knew our habits were changing. Back in 2008, Herman Miller commissioned this landmark study of 250 homeworkers to see exactly how they operated, and the quantitative data they pulled was mind-blowing. It proved just how decentralized the home office had already become. Sure, 87% used a dedicated office space, but 65% were also working in the living room, and almost half, 48%, were getting work done in the bedroom. The study showed that the average homeworker bounced between 2.4 different locations around the house. Mobile technology basically killed the idea that a single traditional desk was the only place to get things done.
And the qualitative side of that exact same study revealed even more nuanced, shifting behaviors. For instance, they found that 43% of women reported working right from the kitchen counter compared to 33% of men. Information like that tells designers something huge. They aren't just designing a static home office desk anymore. They are designing for a highly fluid, itinerant workflow that has to blend seamlessly into literally every room of a house and cater to totally different demographic habits.
Which leads us to Section 6, Designing for Evolving Needs, Posture and Aesthetics. So how does the design world actually respond to us constantly moving around our homes like this? Well, we're seeing informal, casual seating rapidly replacing that heavy, traditional desk. Take a lightweight, informal trestle desk as an example. Because we're doing so many quick tasks now, firing off an email, checking social media on a laptop, we just don't need heavy, permanent furniture for that. Modern furniture has to adapt to these short, bursty moments of activity rather than bracing us for an 8-hour stationary marathon.
And this brings up an absolutely crucial and genuinely surprising research finding. Evidence actually shows that simply moving around and changing your posture throughout the day naturally limits physiological damage. Yes, just physically shifting your position protects your body, even if the postures you're adopting aren't traditionally perfect ergonomically. This is a total game changer. It frees designers from those super rigid ergonomic constraints of the past, letting them design much more diverse, casual furniture meant for shorter sessions.
But, of course, there is a catch. Because these new workspaces are invading our cherished living spaces, our living rooms, our bedrooms, the aesthetics matter just as much as the mechanics. Think about sleek bureau desks or minimalist universal shelving. All that enhanced functionality, the hidden wire management, the perfect ergonomic heights, it practically has to be invisible. Let's be real, nobody wants a piece of furniture that looks like a drab gray cubicle dropped right into the middle of their cozy living room.
And that brilliantly brings us full circle. Every curve, every height, and every material of the objects around you has been meticulously observed, surveyed, and tested by someone, somewhere. So I'll leave you with this. Take a look around your own environment right now, but with fresh eyes. How has unseen design research actively shaped the very spot you're sitting in at this exact moment? It's pretty wild to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the design all around you.